The lamp on the credenza lit the dining room in a tired gold. Steam had left the plates hours ago. Garlic butter had cooled on the steak into a pale film. The potato skin wrinkled like a palm gone soft from water. I stared at the blue velvet box tucked in the pocket of Ethan's charcoal jacket and imagined the click of it opening. Then my phone buzzed. "I'm not coming home," Ethan said. "Jenna's sick." My knuckles brushed the jacket's sleeve. "Do you need medicine I can run out?" "No need." His voice sharpened. "I have meetings in the morning." The line went dead. The lamp hummed. The house held its breath. I poured wine until the bottle grew light and tilted my head back. The first mouthful bit my tongue. Red spilled from the corner of my lips and slid down my throat to where the necklace lay cool against my skin. Somewhere under the glass tabletop, my reflection wobbled and broke into two. A small sound came out of me. At first it was polite, like a hiccup. It found its footing and turned raw a cry that lived in the ribs. I pressed my palm to my chest as if I could tuck the sound back in. The lamp kept burning. A laugh answered me. Not a full laugh. A flick with the smallest knife. I was sitting up before I knew I had moved. The air against my face smelled like rain after a power line snaps and something warm from a bakery. Ozone and cinnamon. Smoke gathered near the chandelier. It did not crawl so much as cohere the way a stain remembers water. Lights bent inside it. The glass pendants on the fixture jittered and clicked. "Ava," it said. My name easy and something like a smirk. That ache could feed me for a decade. I squinted. The wine gave the room soft edges. "You're not real." The smoke pulsed. "Make a deal with me." I laughed again, closer to a cough. "Can you make me happy because this hurts?" My voice was too bright. The smile in it belonged to someone else. "I can," it said, "but deals have prices. Hold out your hand." Every hair on my arm stood. I made a fist and then let it go. My fingers trembled over the table, palm up. The smoke leaned like it could breathe. I felt it at the wrist, a pressure with no weight, like being watched. Something cool threaded my skin, a silk thread drawn through without a needle. The room tilted. A pull not from my hand, but from lower, from behind my sternum. I thought of the blue box in Ethan's jacket pocket and the way I had washed the wine glasses before dinner, 2 towels, one to dry, one to polish, like a ritual. "To you," the smoke said, "delighted the most precious thing is love." The wire tightened. A snap soundless in the room, but loud in my bones. The lamp flickered. The pendant nearest me flashed and steadied. Weight lifted. I could have flipped the table with one finger. "Balance," the smoke said, "for happiness." My head tipped back. The ceiling sailed away. The wine glass rolled and clinked. I saw the spoon I had set for dessert, and then everything slid into the lamp's hot face and went out. The phone woke me. A blunt chime dug at my ear. I kept my eyes closed and found the screen with a hand that felt 3 sizes lighter. "Who calls this early?" My voice came out flat and hoarse. "You have a death wish." Silence, then the scrape of breath. Ava Ethan sounded like he had just checked the number twice. "Did you drink last night? With whom?" I opened my eyes. The ceiling looked like paper. I pulled the phone away and watched his name blink. It was a shape and 4 letters. Nothing behind it. It felt like seeing a stranger on a billboard. "None of your business," I said. He exhaled a sound that tried for patience and landed on command. "I need my Navy suit pressed and brought to the office. And I didn't get a decent meal last night, so bring food. Jenna can't keep much down. Pick up rice porridge." My eyes found the lamp, still on. The plates on the table were dry. "Second drawer left nightstand," I said. "First aid kit." "What?" "For the burn on your arm." I let the words sit there like a breadcrumb I was too bored to explain. "If that's all I'm hanging up?" I thumbed the red circle and then turned the phone off. The pillow was cool. My cheek fell into it the way a coin falls into dark felt. I pulled the comforter to my chin. The lamp kept its vigil in the other room. When I woke again, the light had shifted. Afternoon heavy and forgiving. The lamp still burned stubborn as a bad habit. I stood and padded to the kitchen. The tile was cold. I drank water from the tap until my stomach felt stretched smooth. Then I dug a banana out of the fruit bowl and bit it while I scrolled through notifications. Missed calls. Ethan. 2, then 5, then 9. My thumb slipped and opened a video. A man in a navy suit stood on a sidewalk in Midtown with a cardboard sign. He had the kind of face cameras believe. Storm gray eyes, a jaw that took direction. The caption read, "Nationwide search for my sister." The video auto-loaded his voice. "She was taken right after birth," he said. "No trace. We have looked for years." Traffic passed behind him. A bus sighed. A bike bell dinged. He turned the sign and there were bullet points in careful black marker. Heart-shaped birthmark on the lower back left side. large eyes with monolids, surgery scar from an extra finger on the right hand, a photo of a wrinkled newborn foot with 6 tiny toes, the extra one, soft like a tag on a shirt. "If you know anything," he said, "call the Sterling Foundation. We are offering a substantial reward, but more than that, our grandfather is ill. He wants to see her." I tapped the volume up like I was adjusting a thermostat. The man said his name, Landon Sterling, and I knew his company by the way people whispered it like a street. Sterling. He held the sign a little higher. I set the phone on the counter. The tile pressed the edge into my palm. I reached for the hem of my t-shirt and lifted it. The kitchen air brushed the skin above my jeans, a place I only saw in a mirror. To the left of my spine there, it was the small heart I never liked to talk about, a thumbprint of wine-dark skin. My other hand found my right hand. The scar was a pale line near the side of the index finger. It never showed in daylight unless you looked for it. You could miss it if you were in a hurry or if you wanted to. I walked to the hallway. The closet shelf above the washer held the box of old photos I did not open unless something was off. The cardboard had that clean dust smell of air that has not moved. On top were the baby pictures Ethan's mother kept because she liked dates and records the way some people like spices. There was the Polaroid of me on a blanket with a bottle cap near my head for scale. There was the one taken behind the coin laundromat the week she brought me home, the red light of the exit sign bleeding into the corner of the frame. The photo I wanted was stuck to the back of another with time. I teased it apart, slow, not breathing. The white border lifted. The ink sighed. In the picture, a tiny hand reached up to the camera. The palm was a star. The right side showed that extra finger, soft and boneless, a little petal. Someone had circled it later with a blue pen and written the date of the surgery. The handwriting was neat. The line under the numbers was perfectly straight. Years ago, I thought it made me unique and ugly in equal parts. I had not looked at the photo in a long time. The lamp in the dining room hummed. I felt it even here, a warm square on the back of my neck. I sat on the floor in the laundry hallway with the photos in my lap and the phone face down on the tile. I did not turn the phone over. I did not check the missed calls or the text bubbles stuttering to life. I traced the shape of the scar on my finger with my thumb. The paper of the Polaroid was soft from hands. From the kitchen, I could see the edge of the dining table. The wine glass had left a ring on the wood where the coaster had slid. The blue ring box glowed in the pocket of the jacket, a small rectangle of night. I stood and reached for Ethan's jacket the way I had 100 times to brush lint to pin a stray thread. The pocket gave velvet against my knuckles. I closed my hand around the box and held it. The lid did not move. My thumb waited for a click that did not come. The lamp made a faint electrical tick. The silence after that tick felt like a held tongue. I set the box back and took the photo to the couch. My body had the exact weight of the cushion. I looked at the heart on my back without a mirror by closing my eyes and feeling for the raised edge. The banana peel on the counter browned. Outside, a bus hissed at a stop and let out someone's afternoon. The lamp kept shining. I slid the photo back into its sleeve and returned the stack to the box. On top, I left the Polaroid with the blue circle. It was the only thing in the house that did not need the lamp to be seen. In the quiet, a laugh I had heard in smoke touched the edge of the room and then was gone. I looked down at my hand and at the scar. It felt like a key that had always fit a lock I had never bothered to try. The lamp hummed again. The pendant nearest the table shivered. The wine stain on the wood dried to a dull maroon. I opened the photo album. The edges stuck from years of glue. Under a plastic sleeve near the front, a snapshot waited. A nurse's glove held a newborn hand with 6 tiny knobs. Someone had written in blue pen, right hand extra digit. Approved for removal. The date matched the memory from my skin. I touched the plastic with 2 fingers and let them rest there until the cool bled through. Then I turned the page. By late afternoon, the lamp in the dining room still burned. I turned it off and the quiet grew a spine. The blue box remained in Ethan's jacket pocket. The Polaroid with the blue circle lay on top of the photo stack like a paper flag. I took a shower and let the water run over the spot on my back until the skin went pink. The heart shape did not fade. The Sterling Foundation receptionist sounded like she sat in sunlight. She asked for my name, then paused in a way that meant 2 screens had lit up. An email came before I put my phone down. Appointment, address, Midtown. A driver waited outside my building with a card that said read. The lobby of Sterling Tower smelled like cedar and lilies. The walls caught the light and held it. The elevator rose smooth and steady, a square of city shrinking under my shoes. At the top, glass and steel grew quiet together. A woman in navy met me with a soft smile and a white envelope. Inside was a cheek swab kit with instructions printed in a font that looked expensive. Landon Sterling stood by the windows. He had the same jaw from the video. In person, his eyes were less storm and more careful sky. He stepped forward with a kind of relief that did not try to hide itself. We exchanged 2 sentences, and then there was the quick, practical work of swabbing ceiling signing. A lab tech walked the envelope away as if carrying an egg. While we wait, Landon said my siblings would like to meet you. He said it like he was offering water. A door opened and brought a different air. Cameras clicked from someone's phone. Nate Sterling came in first in a gray turtleneck and blinked like a lens finding focus. He held up his phone without apology. Documenting, he said. You are real. Jules followed with paint on his sleeve and glasses that made his eyes more intent. He set a sketchbook on the table and looked at my face the way you look at a landscape you want to get right. Fallon entered last in a crisp white shirt and jeans, a sweep of hair tucked behind one ear. She looked at my monolids like a stylist looks at a bold fabric and smiled. Landon offered coffee or tea. I took water. Jules made a line in the sketchbook. The scratch was soft, but it sounded like a decision. Nate asked if he could film a short introduction, and I shook my head. He lowered the phone without sulking and changed the subject to neighborhoods. Fallon reached for my hand with a kind of easy warmth and turned it palm up. When she saw the pale line near the index finger, she nodded once. Not surprise, recognition. A messenger brought a thin folder with a lab seal pressed into the flap. Landon opened it and read 3 lines. His hand went to his mouth for a second, then he lowered it and looked at me. There was a wordless yes in the way his shoulders let go. He crossed the room in 3 long steps and put his arms around me. His suit smelled like wool and citrus. My body did not brace. He stepped back so the others could close in. Jules lifted the sketchbook like a shield and then set it aside to hug me. Nate pretended to keep filming but put the phone in his pocket to pull me in. Fallon held my face in both her hands and kissed my forehead. It was a lot of body and sound. It felt like stepping into a house, hearing all the lights click on at once. A closet opened onto a private floor like a boutique stacked in rows. Fabrics fell under my fingers like water. Fallon skimmed from hanger to hanger and plucked out a dress that caught every light in the room without screaming for it. She held it to my shoulder and tilted her head. This makes your eyes loud in the right way, she said. I looked at the price tag and felt nothing but cool curiosity. My old life would have curled back from it. Fallon did not blink. She had a way of making scale seem natural. Nate threw a blazer over my shoulders and whistled low. We need a reveal tonight, he said to no one in particular. Jules was already sketching the neckline on a page and writing notes about negative space. They fed me in a room with a long table and a view of the river. The food tasted like a chef had been told to show off without making a scene. Landon slid a folder across the wood. Inside was a term sheet printed on heavy paper. The numbers lined up in a way that felt solid under the eyes. 100 million to allocate, he said. Make choices. If it goes wrong, it is tuition. If it goes right, the return is yours. His tone did not change. He could have been offering more water. The pen in the folder felt heavier than it looked. By night, I slept in a suite that smelled like fresh paint and new linen. I woke before my alarm and watched the city pale from gray to silver. For the first time in a long time, I did not wake into the lamp's yellow. The light here arrived with its own mind. Fallon's team changed my hair in ways that made it look like itself but better. The makeup played with shadow around my eyes the way a good photograph does. Nate filmed a 30-second clip of us laughing in the hallway. He did not post it. He saved it. Jules gave me a small frame sketch. A face in 2 lines, a mouth that did not overshare. Landon sent a text with 3 words. Welcome home, Ava. In the office that would be mine glass on 2 sides made the city into a quiet aquarium. A case team had built me a project room overnight. Whiteboards, stackable chairs. 2 high stacks of folders sat in the center of the table with a yellow sticky note on each. Nimbus Forge, E and J Dynamics. I lifted the Nimbus file first. Clean Unit Economics. A product that already moved without begging. A founder with sober eyes, not greedy eyes, the kind that measure. E and J's file had glossy photos. Ethan smiling with a hand in his pocket, Jenna to the side with a tilt that said she understood cameras. The number spoke with less confidence. There were footnotes that wanted to be footnotes and footnotes that wanted to be headlines. A memo from a banker promised a lifeline with the right anchor check. The name of the company, E and J Dynamics, repeated down the page until it felt like a drum. My phone buzzed. Not Ethan. A wall of new messages from unknown numbers. Handsome faces in tiny circles. Fallon had introduced me to a room full of people who liked to be introduced. I scrolled without feeling anything except the mild caffeine edge from my coffee. One name kept popping up. Riker, a reality show finalist with an open smile and a body that belonged to mirrors. He sent a gym photo that looked like a commercial, then a paragraph about a debut and a chance and a heartfelt plea, then another, then another. The number at the top of the thread turned into 99 plus. I typed a single sentence about focusing on work and put the phone face down. For 2 minutes. Then he sent a selfie with a pout and the words, "I can make it worth your while." I blocked the number. The noise in the room lowered by 1 notch. Fallon breezed in with a garment bag and hooked it on a brass stand. She unzipped it to show the couture dress from the day before. Up close, the fabric was heavier than it looked. The beadwork felt like ice if ice could be warm in your hand. "For the gala this weekend," she said. "Wear it or hang it and stare. Both are valid." She kissed my cheek and left lipstick where my skin was already warm. I looked at the dress for a long minute and then turned back to the table. Nimbus notes in the margin questions I wanted answered a list of calls to make. E and J. I made a second list and scratched half of it out. I flipped to the cap table and the fact of the name sat there again. E and J. It had always been bold. It was bolder on paper that had to survive an audit. The office shifted with the afternoon sun. The glass changed from mirror to window. I set the E and J folder on the edge of the table and pushed it half an inch farther. Its shadow shortened. My phone lit again with Jenna's name. I considered not answering. I answered. "Ava." "I know you hate me," she said, voice thin and breathy, but he drank. "He is allergic, and he drank 2 bottles. He keeps saying your name. He will not get in the car. I cannot move him. Please." I pressed the phone against my ear and looked at the city. It glittered without trying. I thought of the lamp and the wine ring on wood, and the way a word can leave your mouth and mutate by the time it reaches another person's air. "Call an ambulance," I said. "He will refuse. Then tell them to be firm." I opened a browser and typed a question I did not want to ask a lawyer friend. If someone refuses medical help and gets worse, am I responsible? The answer I found was dry and narrow. It steadied my hand. I called 911 myself. I gave the address and told them about the allergy. I told them the patient had a stubborn streak and that gentleness would fail. The dispatcher said they understood. I asked them to call me if they needed permission for anything. They would not, they said. I hung up and returned to the table. Nimbus waited. The pages felt like they had a quiet pulse. I made a list of data rooms to access and a row of names to call for references. I wrote a question about runway in the corner of a sheet and underlined it once. A calendar invite slid across my screen like a card under a door. Somatech Capital Gala, Saturday night. I clicked. The guest list opened. My eyes wrote 2 names without my help. Nimbus Forge, E, and J Dynamics. The edge of the E and J folder pressed a crescent into the skin of my hand. I picked it up, closed it, and set it on a side table where it could sit without asking to be read. Then I turned back to Nimbus and began to read out loud in a low voice, like I was making the pages learn their own logic. The room listened. The city kept breathing behind the glass. The Somatech Capital Gala turned the museum atrium into a cool aquarium of glass and light. The floor was poured concrete polished to a wet shine. Sculpture sat on plinths like satellites that had drifted into rest. I arrived with a small team from Sterling and a dress that felt like liquid armor. The beadwork kept a secret weight against my ribs. In the reflection of a window, I looked like a version of myself that remembered every angle and had decided to keep them. The host moved us along a green wall and into the main hall. A string quartet practiced silence between notes. Tall floral arrangements threw a clean scent into air that already smelled of citrus and cashmere. Laughter traveled in silver strings across the room. I saw name badges and watches and the kind of shoes made by hands. A waiter offered champagne and my hand closed around the stem by habit. The glass was cold and exact. Nimbus Forge had a station along the south wall where the light was soft. A banner with their logo lifted and fell in the air. Someone opened with a door. Daniel Jang stood beside a model of a compact robot, the kind of object that looks like it knows something you do not. He saw me and came forward with a smile that made room without tipping into eagerness. "Ms. Reed," he said, "thank you for the time on the phone." "Thank you for not overselling," I said. He laughed. The sound stayed at the right volume. We talked for 6 minutes and covered 6 things. When he answered a question about unit economics, his eyes stayed steady. When I asked about a line item in R&D, he did not turn to his co-founder. He did not look for permission. He already had it. Across the hall, a board with sponsor logos held a small square that read E and J Dynamics. The square looked smaller in person than it had on my screen. The E and the J pressed their shoulders together like people in a photo trying to look closer than they are. A sterling counsel approached with a leather folio. Daniel set his flute on a ledge and reached for the pen. The nib touched paper with a sound that was almost a note. A camera took a discreet picture. The flash did not pop so much as breathe. I signed beneath his name and the ink sank into the page. The paper had tooth. It accepted the line the way a good listener accepts a story. A tiny storm passed behind my eyes and then was gone. Somewhere beyond the bar, I felt a stare that remembered me. I did not turn toward it. I put the pen down and closed the folder with my palm, a gentle press that felt like putting a lid on water. When I looked up, Ethan stood 10 paces away. He wore a black suit that tried hard to be a uniform. His jaw looked tighter than I remembered. He took a step and then another and then stopped when he saw Daniel shake my hand. The smile on Ethan's face reached his teeth and then forgot what to do. "Congratulations," Daniel said to both of us, as if we had all accomplished something. He excused himself with real ease. He knew how to leave a scene clean. Ethan followed my path as I moved toward an alcove near the emergency exit. A plume of eucalyptus leaned over the doorway. The light there came in low and made the concrete look like water in a cave. I could feel his suit before his hand found my shoulder. He did not speak first. He drew me in with a strength that tried for careful and landed on pleading. "Just a minute," he said near my ear. "Let me hold you for a minute." The lapel of his jacket touched the beads on my dress and made a soft click. He was warm and smelled like the soap he had used since college. My body remembered the shape of him, but did not reach. The world closed its noise for a breath and left us in a quiet that felt staged. Then I felt it, wet at my neck. Tears finding the silk. I let him have his minute. His chest rose under my hands and fell. He stood very still in the way people do when they think stillness is a strategy. The wet spread. It made a darker crescent on the fabric. My mind put a number to it without effort. When he stepped back, his eyes were red at the edges. The color made him look almost young. I saw the boy who had slid comic books into my desk and dared me to get caught. He looked at the dress and then at me and did not apologize. "I will send the bill to your office," I said. "The couture requires special cleaning. Have accounts payable note the deadline on the invoice." A corner of his mouth twitched. Fine. He reached for an expression that would move me. It did not arrive. Outside the glass doors, the valets worked the curb like a dance. A car with a matte finish pulled up and exhaled light. Another behind it. Another. "It is late," he said. "Let me drive you home." I let my eyes go to the street. A row of supercars idled with their lights low. The one closest had a driver who unfolded himself from the seat like a page turning. He was tall, 6'1" at least, with a face that had been made for print, but found better work in motion. He crossed to the door and shrugged his jacket off my shoulders before I knew he had claimed that right. "This gentleman is careless," he said, looking at Ethan as if he had wandered into a rehearsal. "How can he let you walk in those heels to the curb? I would carry you so your shoes do not taste dust. A princess should not risk an ankle." The cadence was familiar. I had heard lines like that used as knives wrapped in fruit. Coming from him, they mocked their own drama and made a new kind of theater. The jacket was warm from his body. He smelled faintly of a cologne that knew how to keep quiet. Ethan's jaw settled into itself. The muscle near his ear jumped once. I saw the calculation in the memory. He had said those words to someone else, and then to me as apology without substance. We stood in the small silence that comes when a scene ends, and the room waits to see if the actors will bow. "Good night, Ethan," I said. I let the tall man open the door. Inside, the interior felt like the inside of a watch. Everything precise and dark and tuned. I texted 3 different men a set of identical words and watched their dots bloom and answer. The car slid into Market Street traffic. The city made room. Back at the suite, a bill for cleaning the dress sat in my inbox. Fallon had sent it to me with a comment about the fabric care specialist. I forwarded it to an address at E&J I had used 100 times to send receipts for catering and cabs. This time I put the number in the subject line. It looked clean there. The next morning, light slid across the office floor like it had learned a better trick in the night. I met with Nimbus engineers and a product manager who spoke in verbs and not metaphors. The file grew its own spine. My notes moved from margins to a clean page. At noon, my phone rang with the office line from E&J. I let it ring twice and then took it. "Why are you still around him?" Jenna said without greeting. Her voice thinned to an accusation she could not prove. "I thought you were out." "It is a bill," I said. "You have attached a novel to it in your head. That is your profession, not mine. We are both women, she said. Who do you think you are fooling? I did not answer that. She took a breath that sounded like she had stepped away from her desk and into a corner. Give me the invoice, she said. I will hand you a check. Blue bottle under our building, 30 minutes. Her tone kept its edge and lost its heat. I looked at the Nimbus calendar and the stack of calls. I said yes. On the sidewalk outside Sterling, a familiar red Ferrari eased to the curb. The driver leaned across to push the door open and grinned like a teenager who had been given a pass to cut a line. He had texted good morning earlier with a photo of a croissant next to a newspaper folded to the arts page. The seat leather warmed under me as the car pulled into traffic. Blue bottle sat in the base of a glass tower with white tile and small round tables. The windows made every person a portrait, clean light on precise faces. Jenna had taken a seat near the back and was mid-sip when I walked in. The Ferrari's engine gave a last purr as it rolled away. Heads turned and turned back. I crossed the floor. Jenna swallowed wrong. Coffee went the wrong direction and she coughed until her eyes watered. I reached to touch her back and she flinched. The cup rattled against the saucer. The invoice folder slid from my hand onto the table and came to rest like a quiet gavel. Blue bottle was bright and cold. The room hummed with grinders and quiet talk. White tile, chrome, clean glass. Jenna had chosen a table against the back wall near an outlet. Her hands were wrapped around a paper cup as if heat might argue her case. You came, she said, eyes flicking to the folder. Good. Give me the invoice. I set it down. She did not touch it. Her gaze stayed on me a beat too long. Something in it gave up the shape of a plan. The air from the ceiling vent lifted a strand of her hair and let it fall. Ava, she said, do you believe in demons? The word sat there without apology. It sounded smaller in daylight than it had in my dining room under a lamp. I am listening, I said. She gave a small laugh that had no humor in it. You will think I am insane. She leaned in. Her perfume was a soft floral, the kind you forget until it moves. I made 2 deals, with something that was not human. A couple at the next table shifted their chairs. The barista pulled a shot and tamped another. The sound had a clean click. The first time Jenna said I gave up Ethan's love for a career. The thing offered me a scale. It looked at my life and told me what weighed the most. I chose wrong on purpose. I wanted the job. I thought I could win the rest back later. She swallowed. Her throat worked hard. She wiped under one eye with her fingertip and put the moisture on a napkin like a habit. I asked to undo it. The thing smiled. It said sales are final. So I made the second deal. I gave up my career so you would leave him. I did not know what that meant. I only knew I wanted you gone. Then he would look at me and see me. He would not hear your name in every room like a song I could not mute. Her mouth pressed thin. She let out a breath and looked at the wall. The electric outlet between us blinked its little green light. Her hand found mine without ceremony. Her fingers were cold. You have almost everything now, she said. Money, family, your face on screens I cannot afford. Just do one thing for me. Stay far from him, please. Her eyes were raw. The skin beneath them looked thin as paper. I took my hand back and tapped the folder once. The paper inside made a soft slap. The Ferrari outside is not mine, I said. A friend brought me. He is one of several. No one has a claim. Ethan is a line of letters on my phone and a record in a spreadsheet for accounts payable. That is all. Jenna stared. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. Something in her posture folded in on itself. Behind her, the reflection in the chrome column near the restroom bent and gathered. Smoke built out of light that should not have gathered. I knew the scent before my mind said a name. Ozone after rain. Cinnamon from a warm street. I raised my eyes and met the shape in the metal. Cade smiled like a line. Ava Reed, it said, where only I could hear it. Its voice arrived as a thought I did not think. No, I should call you Ava Sterling now. It tilted its head. The light along its edge flickered, then steadied. How are you enjoying your purchase, it asked. Your most precious possession has changed. It is your happiness now. Trade it to me. I can give you 1,000 bright things you have not yet named. The room went on with its business. Ice cracked in a shaker. A spoon stirred a drink. Jenna dabbed at her eyes and did not look up. To her, the metal showed only her own back. I lifted my cup and let the cardboard edge sit against my lip. The coffee was bitter and clean. I swallowed, set the cup down, and followed my own voice to the place where Cade had made itself. No, I said. Cade watched me. If smoke could look disappointed, it did. It shifted a little, like a cat that had been denied a lap. You will regret this, it said. What you want is not for sale, I said. Find another counter. The lights overhead did a small polite flicker. The chrome column turned into metal again. Cade left no scent as it went. Only the air felt briefly thinner, like a room after a door closes on laughter. Jenna had not moved. She placed the napkin flat and smoothed it. "Do you think I am a monster?" she asked, voice low. "I think you are tired," I said, "and that you made trades you cannot unmake." Her eyes shifted toward the folder. She pulled it close and slid a check across the table with 2 fingers. It was already filled out. The ink gleamed where it had not dried. Her phone face lit with a notification. Mine buzzed a second later. An internal bulletin from E&J Dynamics bounced across both screens. The subject line had 5 words. Proposed rebrand to Ava Tech. There was a paragraph about timing and markets and clarity. The uppercase letters sat heavy as stones. Jenna stared at the subject line. A sound came out of her that did not belong in a coffee shop. She stood so fast her chair made a sharp complaint on the tile. Her cup wobbled but did not spill. She held herself still in the way people do when standing is the only thing left that can be done right. Her mouth opened once and closed. She took out a white envelope from her bag and set it on the table under the folder. The paper caught the light along its sealed edge. "It is my resignation," she said, "effective today." She did not wait for words from me. She left with her spine straight and her steps clean. The door sighed behind her and let in the city with a small gust. By late afternoon, I drove out of the city. The highway cut through fields gone dusty green. The sky looked thin over the delta. I turned up a hill where the grass leaned and held on. The cemetery sat with a view of water and distant roofs. The air tasted of cut stems and stone. Ethan stood near his mother's plot with his hands in his pockets. The granite held a name and 2 dates. He looked older without trying to. He nodded at me like we had just stepped out of a meeting. We talked about school detentions and lunchroom trades. He remembered the day a teacher sent him into the hallway, and I walked out too. I reminded him it was because I had slipped a comic into his desk and wanted company in my punishment. He smiled at that. It softened him in a way that had nothing to do with me. "Do you remember the first time you cooked for me?" he asked. "You wanted to make Coke braised wings." "I used vinegar," I said, "close enough in color." It was not close," he said. "I ate them anyway." The wind lifted the leaves in the tree above us. The sound was a soft argument. He looked at the flowers someone had brought that morning. They were white and simple. He placed his hand on the top of the headstone and then pulled it back as if the stone was warmer than he expected. "We were close," he said. "We almost got there." His voice did not break. It emptied out. He kept his eyes on the stone because surface is easier than depth. "The day you left," he said, "the house was loud with quiet. I tried to pick ties in the morning. I tried to fold shirts the way you did. I left a light on in the living room and sat under it. I waited like you used to wait for me to come back from whatever dinner was stretching into a night that did not need me." He paused. The wind filled the space he left. "It felt like putting something slow on heat," he said. "A relationship on a low flame. It burns down and down until there is nothing left to scrape." We stood with that. The past arranged itself in my head in clean and different rows. I could see the couch where I had folded into a corner. I could see the lamp. I could see my own hands tucking a throw pillow into a shape that meant patience. He turned and looked at me, then not at the stone. His eyes held the day without asking anything from it. "It is impossible for us now," he said. "We missed it." I did not argue. There was nothing to add to a true sentence. He nodded like a man taking the measure of his own words. He stepped back. We walked down the path together until the gravel turned to asphalt. A car took the last bend fast and came to an exact stop. The paint held the sun like a mirror and then returned it. The window slid down. The driver had a face that registered as trouble or invitation depending on the angle. His smile was a bright cut. "Woman," he said, "equal parts tease and decree. You dare summon me to be your chauffeur." The line landed with its own music. Ethan looked at the car, then at me. My hand found the strap of my bag. The air off the engine came warm and a little sweet with gasoline. The driver's eyes were a dark, steady kind. He tapped the steering wheel with 2 fingers and waited. I opened the passenger door. The seat hugged my hips in a way that made speed feel like an agreement. Ethan lifted 2 fingers, a gesture that meant goodbye and permission. He walked to his car without looking back. Gravel clicked under his shoes. The cemetery wind moved over the hill and forgot us. The driver shifted the car into gear with the easy touch of someone who liked tools. He flicked his eyes at me. Close up, the handsome sharpened into something playful and shameless. "You look at me like you know me," he said. "Lose a startup," I said. "Win an arena. Kai Vega." He tilted his chin, pleased. "You read the comments." "I read balance sheets," I said, "and gravity." We slid down the hill and onto the road. The city grew out of the distance, glass stacked like cards. He drove like a person who understood friction. The kind voice of the engine sat low at the base of my spine. He drummed 2 fingers on the wheel. I got demoted, he said, half joke, half confession. People upstairs did not love my last deal. Upstairs, I said. What is the rent like there? Expensive, he said, paid in secrets and accidents. He looked at me, then back at the road. I know cinnamon and ozone mean something to you. The air in the car felt warmer for a second, as if someone had remembered to close a window. He smiled without teeth. It did not feel human or inhuman. It felt like itself. You are better looking as a person, I said. Safer to kiss, he said. We parked in a garage under a strip of neon that turned the concrete a soft bruise color. The smell of rubber lived in the walls. His profile looked like a good decision and a bad habit layered together. You want to build, I said. Studio team content that can stand without you. Maybe a talent incubator. You need runway and someone who can hold a term sheet without getting bored. He watched me like I had produced a rabbit from a hat he had not seen me put on. And what do you want? A partner who can pull an audience with a sentence. A frontman who sells without asking. Your vanity is a feature. You want to play. Keep playing. I will cover the rest. He leaned back and let the ceiling light draw a halo on his jaw. Name your price. I reached into my bag and took out a slim folder. 1 page. Terms in clean font. Numbers that respected both heat and gravity. I slid it onto his lap. Signature, I said, and a receipt. Receipt, he said. He had the word in his mouth like a candy he was not sure about. I took a tube of lipstick from my bag. The cap clicked. The stick rose scarlet and smelled faintly of wax and fruit. I drew a neat line across my lower lip and pressed my lips together. He read the page once. Then again, he signed with a flourish that would play well in a clip. I leaned in and planted a kiss on his cheek. A soft, deliberate press. When I pulled back, the red print sat perfect on his skin. My shade, my mark. He put his fingertips there and looked at the color. A receipt, he said, a little breathless. Acknowledged. Over the next weeks, the pages of my days rearranged with clean edges. Nimbus Forge closed their round and then announced an IPO date. The prospectus read like a sober promise. The ticker went live in a room full of screens and polite clapping. Cameras caught me on the edge of the frame with a hand on a railing. Daniel gave me a nod that traveled through noise. E and J filed their own paperwork and finished a rebrand without changing a single engine part. AVA Tech arrived in 8 letters across a stage wall. Ethan's presentation was lean. His eyes were dry. Afterward, he shook hands until his knuckles blanched. He worked nights like a person trying to memorize a new language by immersion. He stopped returning personal calls that did not sound like business. It suited him. Jenna's name slipped out of the feed. No mentions, no sightings. A LinkedIn line went gray. She left a space that did not echo. Kai's stream lit up the site at 9 sharp most nights. He greeted the chat like a court in a locker room at once. The camera loved him more when he led it. He ran a scrim with 2 rookies and turned their stumbles into a highlight reel that sold kindness as swagger. He wore my studio's hoodie and said our name 3 times in an hour without saying advertisement. The numbers climbed. The sponsors leaned in. The term sheet in my folder felt heavier. Good heavy. I flew home one Friday and went to the Nob Hill apartment I no longer needed. The key still turned indifferent to memory. The room opened itself the way a mouth does when a dentist asks. Dust had settled along the credenza where the lamp sat. I wiped a finger across the base and left a clean path. I did not turn it on. The switch sat there like a habit that had forgotten why it started. The wine ring was a faint ghost on the table. The blue ring box still lived in the jacket pocket. I slid it out and held it in my palm. It carried the weight of an idea. I opened it. The velvet cradle was empty. The absence felt precise. Ethan had taken the ring when he took the name, or before, or never had one to begin with. It did not matter. The hinge worked. The inside smelled like fabric that had waited too long in a drawer. I closed the box and put it into a small safe in the bedroom with a stack of papers that mattered. Contracts. A birth certificate with the wrong last name crossed out. I locked the safe and stood there a moment, letting the quiet set. On the way back to the living room, I ran my hand along the wall and stopped where the lamp cord curved toward the outlet. The bulb had one last job. I turned it on. The room took the gold and made it gentle. For a moment, it felt like every night had layered itself into this light. The dinners, the waiting, the covers folded back to keep something warm that would arrive cold. I reached out and turned the switch until it clicked. The yellow snapped off. The window held its own pail. The furniture sat where it always had. The air changed its mind. There was a mirror over the console. In it, my lipstick was still perfect. The red on Kai's cheek had left a print on my skin when I had leaned back into the seat, a faint echo near my jaw. I touched it and my finger came away clean. The mark belonged on him. I stepped outside and pulled the door until the latch held. On the sidewalk, the city smelled like steam and cilantro from a taco truck and the faint iron of the cable car tracks. My phone buzzed, a clip from Kai's stream. He turned his cheek to the camera like a knight showing a crest. The chat exploded with hearts that looked too sweet and too true at once. I smiled and put the phone away. The streetlights came on in a line. I walked toward the corner where the hill drops and the view opens. The night had the right temperature for a long breath. I took one and let it go. The deal was signed. The receipt was kept. The light was out. Best deal I ever made. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.